Thank you for joining us for our first ever table talk, part of our panel series to have the opportunity for those who identify as solos to learn from each other and hear from each other, share experiences. I just wanted to give you some basic information for anyone for whom this is their first Navigating Solo program. My name is Ailene. I am an independent board-certified patient advocate, certified senior advisor, and founder of the Navigating Solo Network. The table talks are designed, as I said, to be a free panel series where people have the opportunity to bring their experiences, maybe some solution finding, definitely share experiences, learn from and with each other. For anyone for whom they are not familiar with the Navigating Solo Network, it's a clearinghouse and website with all kinds of recordings, podcasts, interviews, books, articles, and then also programming and resources designed to really focus on solo agers. So hopefully it's a one-stop shop, a clearinghouse for accessing different kinds of resources when you're looking for them. For anyone who's unaware of what's on the website, these are the different things that are available. And I'm certainly happy after our program to discuss it with anyone. I just thought it might be fun for you to see where everybody is this evening, which is pretty great. And I thought you'd appreciate seeing where people are connecting from. I like to make sure, and I'm sorry for those of you for whom this is repeated over and over again, but I really like to make sure we have a shared language when we have programs that are fortunately attended by a large number of people. And so I just want to review for some of you and new for some of you. So for me, the whole concept of solo aging is a framework. For me, it's not a definition. There isn't a membership card to issue. It's not AARP or AAA or any of those, but rather for me, it's a framework that really looks at people who identify as solo agers because they don't have a reliable support system. So those folks can be people who do not have children, may or may not be married or partnered, live on their own or with a partner, or had children, but for a whole variety of reasons, from complicated dynamics to inability or unwillingness to assist, or unfortunately outliving their children, those adults are not able to help support the older adult in their world. And so people really have to be intentional about crafting support networks that best meet their needs. In the work that I do and the talks that I give, I look at 7 specific planning needs for solo agers. They, of course, apply to everyone who's aging. The second we landed on the planet, we were aging. But for solos, it's a really intentional, methodical way of putting together resources and a plan in these 7 different categories. So healthcare needs and management, advanced care planning, residential decisions, financial, legal, your support network, and living a dynamic life. As we launch into our larger conversation and hear from our panelists, just a few ground rules. If you're not speaking, it would be very helpful for background noise to make sure you're on mute. If you would like, you can certainly, in the area where your name is, you can click on rename or add, and you can add your location next to your name if that interests you. Respectful listening is, of course, always key. We're in a large Zoom format. We may not be in the same literal room together, but it's important to respect everyone's perspectives. You're welcome to use chat to ask questions, to share comments, to share resources. but there is no obligation to share anything you don't want to share or share at all. If you would like to just absorb the conversation, you're welcome to do that as well, so that we have a supportive, informative, and solution focused conversation this evening. Our four panelists are pretty great. So Natalie, I put is in Georgia, but she's beaming in from South Carolina, so she gets 2 state credits this evening. Stephen Gordon's in Virginia, Sandra Moffett is in California, and Jody Weisberg is in Arizona. And each of them is going to make sure they'll introduce themselves as part of our panel conversation. Couple more things. I like to make sure people have some good resources. If you are looking for books to check out of a library or purchase yourself, that's your choice. But all 4 of the books at the bottom of the page are available in libraries. Essential Retirement Planning for Solo Agers, written by Sarah Zuff-Geber. Who Will Take Care of Me When I'm Old, and The Complete Elder Care Planner are by Joy Laverty. Who Will Take Care of Me When I'm Old is solo aging specific. And the other Elder Care Planner is in its 4th edition and an excellent resource. And The Child-Free Guide to Life and Money is written by a certified financial planner who has his own financial practice called Child-Free Wealth. And his book is the newest of the 4 and is also available in libraries. I like to make sure no matter how you like to or are able to access resources, you have different methods for doing so. After a 3-year project, I finally completed a planning workbook I've been working on. This Thursday, as with everything else this time of year, it will go on sale. So you are welcome to take advantage of that. There'll be publicity about that as well. If you are a social media Facebook embracer, and I recognize not everyone is, here are some Facebook groups that I know for sure are reliable and supportive when it comes to solo aging. So if that interests you, you're welcome to take a screenshot or something that will help you with that. That's what's in the resource library of the Navigating Solo website. And next May, it will be our 3rd Solo Aging Visibility Day, and there'll be programming for it. There are opportunities for organizations and businesses and individuals to get involved, be a partner. It's free. Do something to increase or further visibility or advocacy for solo agers. So that'll be on May 13th of next year. And just finally, often this time of year, I like to make sure there are supportive resources and ideas on people who identify as solo agers as we navigate this holiday season. So different ways to navigate that, maybe some ideas to think about. There's a blog post at that website. And then to the right, there are a 2-page checklist, which is free for you to download. It gives you some ideas as well. So I can certainly put that link in the chat once we're ready for all of that. Thank you to all of you who are joining us. There are 119 people thus far logged in. Feel free to continue to share in chat or an ad where you're located if you want to. Again, no obligation to do so, but it's always nice to know where people are. So I'm going to go ahead and get started with our panelists. We're planning to end at the top of the hour. So in the interest of everyone's time, I thought I would introduce Natalie, Stephen, Sandra, and Jody. I have a couple of sentences of bio for each, and then they'll also share with us their experiences, etc. Natalie has spent 27 years in banking marketing and now helps internal partners build smooth, effective web pages. She also runs Peaceful Productivity, where she shares her framework for building self-directed, grounded lives and openly discusses her solo aging journey. Stephen Gordon is a retired Department of Justice attorney who enforced the ADA in healthcare settings and now consults on ADA compliance, which is American Disabilities Act, is the ADA. As a solo ager and longtime caregiver for family members, he actively explores both the practical and joyful sides of navigating solo aging. Sandra Moffat built a 40-year career in legal and medical transcription before retiring in 2013. She's an active member of the Pasadena Village who values the community she's found there and happily lives with her two cats, Trixie and Pixie. And Jody Weisberg is a former attorney and award-winning investigative journalist whose article Finding Fiduciary has been featured by AARP, MarketWatch, and Forbes. She's also a seasoned public speaker and a stand-up comedian, and now is enjoying retirement and dog sitting. I know that each of them brings a unique perspective, and I will open the floor for each panelist to just quickly share their own name, where they're from, and possibly what piqued their interest about exploring solo aging or the framework of it. So, who wants to go first? Jump in. Stephen, you can go first.
Sure. So again, I'm in Alexandria, Virginia, and I supported my mother when she was sick and dying. And I also have a sister who has intellectual and developmental disabilities. And that's what's left of my nuclear family. I am not currently partnered and I don't have children. And I've been doing a lot of things for my sister, did a lot for my mother. And one of the things I kept thinking about is, well, who's going to do this for me? And my hope is that I'm not going to get debilitated, but I'm going to say it was about 4 or 5 years ago, I came across an article in the Washington Post about a man in Florida who had had a stroke. He was a solo ager. He had a child who lived pretty far away, he wasn't very close with, and ended up in a hospital and then in a skilled nursing facility. And someone he didn't know, a lawyer who was often appointed by a probate judge, took over all of his affairs, sold off his house, and he lost a lot of his autonomy. And it really hit me hard. And I really wanted to find ways of having more agency over my life as I age. And I'm a lawyer. I know how to help people, and I like to find other support like that. I also, on the fun side, I love to travel and do things, and I find it fun to develop community around all of that also. So for me, there's kind of two different sides of this. One is the really serious side, but the other is just having community, even as a solo ager, is important.
Excellent. We'll have to do a podcast on solo travelers, right? Because that's something that is becoming more and more popular. And so we can tap into that as well. Natalie, would you like to share how we find you on the panel this evening or afternoon?
Okay, so thanks, Ailene. I am currently in between Atlanta, Georgia, and the wonderful city of Rock Hill, South Carolina, where my mother retired. Unfortunately, I lost my mom last December, almost a year. And I think leading up to that, like Stephen, I was her caretaker when she got sick for the first time in 2021. I'm an only child. I'm one of those people that got a really big wake up call during the pandemic and divorced. And I don't have children. And so I think when I first came across the term, it was called elder orphan. And that did not make me feel great, but at least there was a name for it. Okay. So I was like, okay, that's what I am or what I will be. My dad is still living, but he's in a nursing home and he thinks I'm too. So had to kind of face it, but I ran from it for a long time. Okay, well, I have a name. And then I came across Sarah's work and I'm like, solo ager. We're getting better. We're getting warmer. And I do for peaceful productivity, I start writing because that was my 2021 is when my mom was diagnosed for the first time. And that whole thing just hit me. This is it's not business as usual. So I start getting curious and doing reading. And I too see the serious side of it, but I also see the empowering side of it when you actually face it. So that's how I got introduced to it. And I just love that there's other ways to express it. And now I have the language thanks to Ailene and her work. And I hope to talk about it. Although people have looked at me and said, I don't want to be that. So I'm like, well, it's not a that. But I do think that the work that's out there is really helping me a lot. So that's how I got there, and I don't plan to stop talking about it.
Fabulous. Jody, would you share how you are joining us this evening, afternoon?
Yes, I'm originally from Texas, born and raised in Fort Worth, but I currently live in Arizona where I've lived for many years. I never married or had children, and all of my family is dead. So I am a true solo ager with no support system. I got into this. You would think I would know better being a lawyer, but I went to my lawyer to draw up a trust and get my paperwork in order that we all need, the medical power of attorney, et cetera, et cetera. And when he said to me, "Who do you want to be your trustee?" I had no clue. So he said, hire a fiduciary, a private fiduciary. It should be an easy decision. And that led me on a quest to actually find a fiduciary who I felt could be competent to handle things. But it's very scary because how do you trust a total stranger? Plus, whoever you hire today may not even be working there when you need them. So it's a roll of the dice. And
Jody, can you just give a brief snapshot of what a fiduciary is for those who don't know?
yes, a fiduciary is someone who can step in and handle your medical, financial, whatever your needs may be when you either become unwilling or unable to do them. And then, of course, when you die, you need someone to close your estate, sell your house, file your taxes, do all of that stuff. So that's what a fiduciary can do. And Arizona, I've learned from Ailene that California and Arizona are the only two states that license fiduciaries. But in Arizona, it's a really loose system. Fiduciaries don't have much oversight or regulation, and they get away literally with murder. There have been people who have died under the care of public and private fiduciaries. I'm going to stick with private. And they get a slap on the wrist. There has never been a fiduciary in Arizona, to the best of my knowledge, that has ever had their quote license revoked for whatever. So it's a very scary process and it's totally a roll of the dice. And the other thing is that none of us know how we will age. And so it is impossible to plan. If I knew I was going to have a stroke or have cancer or break a hip, you could plan for that. But none of us know if we will have that or when we will have that. And so the best laid plans, right? You just don't know. And that's also another roll of the dice that we live day to day.
Jody wrote an article, which we can link. And it's a fun fact to me, even though Jody didn't just include it, but she also has a stand up comedy career, which I think is just fabulous.
Thank you.
Sandra, will you share your experience and about you?
Oh, me?
Sure.
Hey, I, like Jody, was born in Texas, but I grew up in California. And I have one son, and he's a senior now, but he lives nearby. We don't live together. I live alone with my cat. And one of the things that has struck me lately, within the last few years, is that I have glaucoma. So I've lost a lot of vision. I cannot drive. And I have to depend on him for doctor's appointments and going to the market and everything. And then belonging to the village, I get to do some events. and keep busy like that. But I'm a solo ager. I was married once, divorced a very long time. And it's, I don't know, I look at people and I think you have no idea what you're going to face. And I'm so amazed at the different things that happen each day that I would never have had a problem with in the past. It's different. It really is different. And I just take it slow and do what I can and move on.
And each of you have walked different paths and have different experiences and backgrounds, represent different ages, different periods of life. Are there particular things that, of course, there are challenges that come with aging in general and solo aging, of course. Are there particular strategies or practices that have helped you thrive when you've been faced with a challenge that you wanted to share with the other 100 plus people who are joining us today?
I'll
Anybody want to
share.
jump in? Natalie?
I think the first thing that I had to do was create an empowering narrative. I joke often that I did not win the social norm lottery, and therefore all the boxes require you to check the social norm. And I wasn't that. And a lot of the language, the depictions, even in entertainment, I'm not going to buy a villain, fix it up. I mean, it's always either really, really extreme or aging is only like what I consider kind of the super agers, the people that are still doing marathons at 80, and I'm not even trying to do one in my 50s, right? So you have these really huge extremes, and I'm like, where do I fit? And I realized, and with the help of a really candid friend, they made me stop saying I'm childless. And I had such negative language because that was what the narrative and the language was. And so I had to really create an empowering language to say, I still got some life in me and I am bigger than these boxes. And then I started to become a joiner. I was telling the group that I'm kind of one of those people at times. I'm like, be my friend, but leave me alone. Like I can go back and forth, or I want to make friends, but you're a stranger. And I was really for a while there, kind of just like I'll just do all this by myself. And then I realized that joining affinity groups have been a lifesaver. Your group in particular, I joined Navigating Solo. I recently joined Reimagine's Grief. It's a From Grief to Growth 10-week group. And I'm just looking for other affinity groups because I'm now having a place to go where people don't shudder or go, oh. And I even had one person say, stop saying that. Stop calling yourself a solo ager. Do you want? And I was like, you do know that doesn't really mean single. Like, I could still have a boyfriend at some point. You're not writing all that off, right, girl? Like, that's not what I'm talking about. But I think people don't realize little things. And like recently, and I'll be honest, I just now go with the emotion of grief because grief ambush is real and so is grief brain. But I had an experience where I tried to fill out paperwork because my mom was my beneficiary and they're only made for like traditional boxes, like almost like you're gonna have a spouse and so many kids. So I put it off for so long because I didn't know who to leave it to. And unfortunately, my mom was a true crime person. And so in the last months of her life, I was watching all those with her and I'm like, oh my gosh, who do I put on this list? But there's not enough space. And I had to call. So I'm already grieving and I'm already dealing with this heavy stuff with my business now. And I couldn't fill out the form and I had to call and go on hold and push all the buttons to get to the prompts. And then another link to go to another section so I can add more than one person. I just start crying. I just start crying. I said, this is unbelievable what I'm being asked to do just because I have more than a spouse and 2.2 kids. I mean, I just couldn't understand it. So I started to really become more determined that I need to be a part of a group that understands that pinch. And the other thing I will say is, and this is something I'm still working on, Ailene, and you have been your workbook. I can't wait to bust it open. Get the information organized. My word. I had information and data everywhere, and bringing it all in one view is helping me to feel more like, okay, I can eventually hand off. And I did get my paperwork done and I did get that form filled out. Although I got to do it again for work. Don't get me started. But I think you have to create an empowering narrative. I think you should really open up to becoming a joiner and finding your tribe and your people and go. Even when you feel like you're going to be first day of school, awkward, over, go. Join, go, be a part of it, and then get your information, even if it's not digital, even if it's just one big shoebox, let's just start putting it all together. And you will start feeling like, oh, okay, I do have pieces of the puzzle, even if they're not all together just yet. So that's what I'm doing. So it seems to be working.
Thank you for sharing that honestly and candidly. And stepping outside of our comfort zones is often very difficult, or shoving ourselves out of our comfort zones is even harder. Another one of our panelists who want to share navigating challenges, arriving at thriving or closer to thriving. Stephen.
I love what Natalie said about being self-defining, because I've had definitely felt a little stigma around my situation. And I've had friends too, I feel proudly say I'm a solo ager. And when I have friends who think, okay, well, that's your plan for life. And no, that's my backup plan if I don't meet someone, but I can't live without a backup plan. And I'm my chief logistics officer. I am the chief planner, everything. I do all that stuff. And if I'm somehow compromised, I need to know that there's a way. The other thing that I've done is similar to Natalie, really look for affinity groups and people who've worked on these issues. And I have found them. And I also did some simple things that I do around research. Like I went on to podcasts and I just put in solo ager in the search engine. I went into YouTube and did the same thing. And in fact, Ailene, that's how I found you, but was just putting that in there. And a lot of it's a very disparate community with things all over the place. There's not like one organized place, but I found it helpful. The other thing, I took a course that DeRote gives, and one of the things that they emphasized was small steps.
Mm-hmm.
And it really helped me because number one, I hope I don't need to do this overnight. And if I do, I'll figure that out. But right now I don't. But it's about getting myself warmed up to take the small steps that I need to take. And also positioning myself better, developing the community. I have more time affluence now than I did before because I retired from my full-time job and I have more of a portfolio life at the moment. And that time affluence was giving me the opportunity to develop more community. And I've made that a priority. Also, I also like the idea of having multiple solo aging communities to belong to because there are a few out there. And I like the idea of having the online ones. And I'm now also looking at things that are local and in person. But it feels like that richness is necessary and not just say, okay, I'm going to be in one space. And it's interesting because I see Wendell on here too. And I know
Mm-hmm.
that she's done some of that as well. She's
Mm-hmm.
developed in one of her other communities, she's developed a solo aging subgroup. So I feel like a lot of the family of choice things that I've learned how to do over my life are coming in handy here. And it's really important for me. And one of the things I've learned is people may think I'm a little beyond midlife, but I'm not in a midlife crisis now that I've retired. I'm in a midlife chrysalis, meaning that
Nice.
I'm kind of transitioning and I want the solo aging piece to be a part of that chrysalis as well. And how do I come out of that?
Do you have aspiration for what color your wings are going to be, or it's going to be a surprise?
I would say that it's still kind of goopy in the chrysalis.
Gotcha.
And I'm uncertain exactly what it's going to look like. And I'm also doing a little bit of hibernating as well because I had a pretty intense career. So
Mm.
I love biology and biological metaphors. So between the chrysalis and the hibernating, something hopefully beautiful will emerge out when it's ready.
Also, the concept of small, which I usually put in quotes because my smile and your smile are not the same small, right? So the notion of what's going to move us forward, right? So I always remind people, look, if you're trying to make a list, put a piece of paper on a desk surface that you're comfortable sitting at and leave a pen there. And one day, maybe the same day, maybe 6 days later, maybe a month later, you'll sit down and that surface will be ready for you to take notes and write. And so my small and everyone else's small definitely looks different. And I think that notion of taking that step going forward, as you put it, Stephen, I think is fantastic. Jody?
Yeah, I think I'm the failure in this panel, on this panel. I'm a lot like Natalie in that I want friends, but leave me alone. I'm very much a loner. I practice law. It's something you do a lot alone. Of course, writing you do alone. And I'm comfortable with that. I'd rather get up and entertain as doing stand-up comic for 3 or 400 people. They're total strangers, and I'm comfortable with that. But if anybody I knew was in the audience, that would be interesting for me. At any rate, I have not had great success in finding a support system. I have joined a gym, which I love and I go to every day for several hours. And I've met a number of women there, which is nice. And I have developed some friendships to go out to lunch or occasional play or whatever. But all of them are either widowed, married, they all have children, they all have grandchildren, which is not anything I have. So they don't really understand my situation. Now, if I needed a ride to the doctor, I'm sure that I could find someone to give me a ride. But the good thing is in Arizona, we have Waymo, we have Uber. If you can't find a ride, you can get one anyway. But for
Waymo or
something
Waymo or self-driving cars for anyone who has not experienced Waymo yet. And it's not native
yes,
to the east side of the country. It's very
they
popular
are.
in Vegas.
Yeah, they're really fabulous, and you don't have to tip a driver or deal with any drivers. It's really nice. So, but for something more serious, it is concerning. And so, for me as a lawyer, having the paperwork in order was important. And I think that's true for everyone, whether you're aging alone or not, because we just simply don't know what will happen on any given day. So everything I have will end up going to charity, and I've named 3 charities. So we'll see if there's any money left after the fiduciaries are done doing their thing. You know, that's elder abuse is a real issue, and we have all read the horror stories or heard them. I don't know how to protect against that, and I think I'm a prime target for elder abuse because who's going to know? Who's going to be looking in on me? No one. So it's a concern that I don't know how to resolve, and I'm not particularly successful at being a joiner or making friends, although I am really making a concerted effort to try and do that. Better late than never.
Stepping out of the comfort zone again takes all kinds of different we have to find different places in ourselves. What's amusing is when I am fortunate to give talks locally, nationally, etc. And I usually ask people to guess whether I'm an introvert or an extrovert. And what do people usually guess? I'm an extrovert. What am I actually? An introvert. Could I do a stand-up comedy bit? Not as well as Jody, no, but I could present to 400 people. No problem, no butterflies, no anything. Walk into a room socially and be me? Oh, well, that's a comfort zone, right? That I can hear the comfort zone alarm going off, right? And so I think that notion of stepping into different places of ourselves is definitely a fantastic thing to think about. And being able to share that with other people is a real gift to other people because you're struggling with it, but you want people to know enough that don't think you're the only one. I always say to people, surprise, you're not a unicorn, because here people are wrestling with different things. So thank you for that, Jody. And I think at the very beginning, you categorized yourself as a failure. Was that the beginning?
Yes,
Would you like to
yeah.
take that back?
Pardon?
Would you like to take that back? I can edit that out.
No, because I consider that in lieu of everyone else who has gotten a support system and joined groups like Natalie, who is much like me, but has made the effort successfully, I have not. So, in that sense, I'm a failure, not so much a failure in life or at life, but as an introvert. And I can guarantee you, having met many, many comics through the decades, almost all of them are incredibly introverted people.
Mhm.
So it is difficult to, especially at this stage in life. And I have actually asked friends, how do you have so many people that you know, so many friends? And they all say to me, well, we made these acquaintances when our children were young and they
Mm.
met through other parents. And those friendships lasted for many years as the kids grew up. So I never had that. So it's an interesting dynamic for sure.
Sandra, do you have anything you'd like to share regarding your challenges, getting to thriving, any of those things?
I met my best friend 68 years ago in high school, and we still check on. She never married at all. And we check on one another and keep in touch on a daily basis. And I grew up alone, so I know I'm an introvert, but I grew up alone. My mother wouldn't let me go outside to play. So when I met my first friend in the ninth grade, it was really important to me. But I think that, and like I said, my son is nearby, but we don't get along very well. And I don't quite understand why, but at least I have him to turn to. And like I said, I have a sister and brother who's 16, 17 years younger than me.
Hmm.
So I can turn to my sister for things when I need them. But I can't imagine not having anyone nearby or close to. But I am a solo ager. I live alone and I live in an area I can walk to the markets and everything. So I'm grateful for all of that. But it's challenging at times. It really is.
Thank you for sharing all of that. One thing I hear often and am asked to assist with regarding solo aging is the whole concept of navigating healthcare, not only the big important what if I can't advocate for myself pieces, but the everyday pieces, the getting to and from appointments, the signing oneself out of something where you had anesthesia. Are there any of you that have had experiences that you've learned from and would do differently, or got really lucky and guessed right the first time?
I cried. I feel like I go through periods where I can't at all, and then times where that's all I do. But what's interesting is, right, the January I got back from South Carolina back to Atlanta from taking care of my mom through her first round of chemo, and she was all free and clear, and I came back to my life in Atlanta, and then I went down. I was sick and needed surgery. And I hadn't thought about the scenario you just presented until the doctor, who is an amazing surgeon, and came highly recommended. But I spent 3 months of them trying to figure out what was wrong, and then they found out what was wrong and said, "Okay, you're gonna have to have an operation, not right away, but you'll have to have it." And he asked how doctors take you through the list. "So, do you have anyone at home?" And my answer was, "I'm divorced," and my voice cracked. And I realized that's when it kinda hit me, that aloneness in the world, and I had never marriage was what it was. I did stay married for 12 years, but I always had someone to pick me up from the colonoscopy and pick me up after surgery, right? Make sure I was the spoon under the nose, right, kinda thing, and it was the first time I had to say it out loud, and now here I am getting ready to cry in the doctor's office and then the answer was divorce. And so I practiced something called, I give myself 72 hours to sit in it, to sit in my ick. Because I do have people I can text, and I'm a Scorpio, I'm very dramatic and I'm good at it. So I can really put it on. And I've decided that all I do is work myself up into a frenzy. So I gave myself 72 hours, and one of the things I started doing is I started Ubering to appointments, because gone are the years where you just hop on the table and hop off. And now I get Miss Brown, we want to take a closer look, and we want you to go up the hall or down the street. So now I'm like, take the day off if I can, Uber there if I can, because that freaks me out. So I was waiting for my Uber and I realized he asked if I had anyone at home. He should say was I was married. And then I started thinking about it. I said, well, I'm pretty sure. I said, there's Uber Eats and there's Instacart and there's care.com. And all of a sudden, I start opening up to possibilities, right? And I think sitting with it helped me not to sort of take on other people's fears. I do think people project onto you, and you kind of, in society, you're like, oh, poor thing. And by the time I was done with it, I'm like, wait a minute. My friends have children and they're studying nursing. Maybe she can come down. And then I called to help the nurse. How you have the insurance card and or Aetna and they have the nurse line. What are my options? And she goes, oh, there's medic things and there's the public transportation. And I learned all of this stuff over a period of 3 days. And I went from crying or really, which is even worse, trying not to cry, which makes you a little bit even more dramatic, but to realizing that, wait a minute, let me think about what he said. I just need someone home. I don't need to be married. I don't need to have children. They don't need to be mine. I need someone to deliver food, maybe someone to clean up. And the social worker you get from your surgery. I used the heck out of her. I used her too much. During the pandemic, there was a lot of shortages, but I made that she worked. She earned her keep. I'm like, you're going to find a nurse to come and check because all these things exist. It's just, again, they're not, only depiction is in the movies, it's the spouse, it's the family, it's all the social norms that everyone's comfortable with, but there's so many resources. So that was really my big example. And I had the surgery, the nurse checked on me. My one friend just told me, I'm coming. I'm coming. And I said, oh, okay now. Because I didn't even think to even put, my first reaction wasn't even to put a broadcast text out to ask. I was just like, I'm divorced. But when you think about it, sit in it and just allow yourself to brainstorm options and look into options. And it got so much better. And I'm not as afraid. I still don't like everybody taking care of me, but I'm learning that there are options.
Well, if we were to survey the 100+ people on the screen and we asked how many people are super comfortable asking for help, how many people do you think would say, ooh, I'm really, really comfortable asking for help? I don't want to burden anyone. I don't want to be a burden. I don't want to look weak. I don't want to interrupt anyone. Everyone else has their support system. Any of these resonate with anybody? Yes, no, maybe. Sounds like the inside of your head, right? So that's another piece of stepping outside of our comfort zones of saying, I need help. I'll give you a very personal example. In January, I had a heart attack. I live on my own, am fiercely independent, and if you've met me, you know I'm also stubborn. And I could not do the things I wanted to do in my home after being released from the hospital. So I had to say yes to relatives coming to help me. It took me not 72 hours, but that would have been a good cooling off period. But it took me a good while to get my brain around that. And here I am encouraging everyone else to step outside their comfort zones. So I just thought I would share that. Other thoughts before we open it up to the group? Anybody else have something they want to share about navigating healthcare or something else they just want to wrap up with before? Sandra.
I just wanted to say that when I first joined the village, it was in 2016. And one of the things I learned from there was go grandparents, which is transportation for seniors. And I have never had a bad driver. They're very courteous and they're very aware that we are seniors and they act as such. So I think it's a good, and they use Uber and Lyft.
Right.
Still, it's geared to older people.
Exactly. Go Get a Grandparent is a company that will make the arrangements with Uber and Lyft
Capital
for people because if they are uncomfortable doing so or don't want to. And so they're a really great resource for anyone. And they are national. I just connected with one of their professionals. I'm going to have a follow-up conversation with him. So it's a resource to definitely look into, as well as your councils on aging, your community centers, your senior centers, whatever they're called in your community, often have programs with Lyft or Uber or some kind of ride share. Doesn't always work in very, very urban communities, but it is another resource as well. So thank you for that. Grandparent is great. Anything else anyone wants to share before I'm going to bring us all together for the last few minutes? Jody?
Yes, I will share one thing that you can do proactively about aging. In Arizona, there's a hospital called Banner Health, and they are one of the world leading researchers into Alzheimer's. So many years ago, I just went to hear a lecture about some of their research. And at the end of the lecture, they said, "Would you like to get DNA tested to see if you have the gene for Alzheimer's?" And I said, "Yes," and it was free. And I thought that's one thing, if I know I have the gene, I can plan for that I could possibly get Alzheimer's. Luckily, I don't have the gene for it, so I'm at a lower risk without having that gene. But if any of you have that resource available to you, that is one health issue that you can either rule out or plan for. And that's a biggie because it can be years that someone could have Alzheimer's. Dementia, we all probably will have some form of dementia different than Alzheimer's, but I feel really relieved to know that I don't have the gene for it. And I would just encourage you to look to see if that is available in your community.
Thank you, Jody. That's touching on that proactive versus reactive. There's so many things about our lives we do not have any control over, but how prepared we are to navigate certain things. So that's an excellent example. I know people have been adding things in chat and giving some kudos to folks as they've shared their ideas or other things. So, Robbie, your hand is up.
Well, first of all, as I mentioned in the chat, this is my first time, and this has been absolutely fantastic. I just feel like I found my people, which is wonderful. Just a couple of quick comments. Both you, Ailene, and Jody mentioned that you're basically introverts. Although I know Jody said that she could do stand-up comedy for a whole like 800 people. I feel that way as well. I mean, not that I can do not that I can do stand-up comedy, but that I'm just what's called social engineering. And that helps me get myself out there and mingle with people and make social contacts. So I do social engineering, and that was a term that somebody at some point applied to what I do. But I also really enjoy my private time. I wanted to mention that I just moved out of a 55 plus active adult community. That is one kind of community, if you feel comfortable in it, where there is a certain amount of support. So they have people that will take you to the doctor, that kind of thing. There are many social things to do. I just sold my home a couple months ago, and I'm currently looking for my forever home. I'm in North Carolina. I might not stay in North Carolina, and I may not do a 55 plus. So this discussion has given me a lot of food for thought in terms of what I'm actually looking for. Do I want to do another 55 plus? Or do I want to search out a community that I feel comfortable in and then find my own people, so to speak, and my own social groups that takes a certain amount of energy. And the only other thing I would mention is that I think it's so important to have a power of attorney, a healthcare power of attorney. We had heard from the attorneys on the panel, and I'm in the process. I've done that, but I'm in the process of changing my estate planning attorney And I think that's important if something's not working out to do that and to look for a new healthcare talent attorney.
I'm so glad you joined us, and I'm glad that the conversation has been helpful and interesting. Does somebody else have a question, comment they'd like to share? We have a couple more minutes before I wrap up. Steven.
Yeah, I put this in the comments too. I have found Meetup to be another great resource for finding people with similar interests. And it's not just for solo agers, but I've actually, when I travel, I sometimes will go to meetup events. I was just out in California and did a hiking event. And it's just a great way to connect with people and build community. And I just wanted to mention that as another idea for folks if they don't know about it.
The largest demographic utilizing the benefits of Meetup are older adults. How about that? That's
Amazing.
pretty great, right? Any other comments?
I was looking at chat and I missed, was it Lauren who was talking about being in a 55 plus community and
was
moving
Robbie.
out? What's that?
It was Robbie.
Robbie. And I was wondering why she was moving out because I'm looking into moving into them. And what's the downside of being in a 55 plus community?
Well, I don't think I don't want to take up a lot of time, but I don't think it's necessarily for everyone. That's not for what it's worth. The homes are typically production homes, so there may be some issues that you have to deal with in terms of the home, issues with the home. And there are a lot of cliques. They tend to be very cliquish, but some people love them. Other people would prefer finding a different kind of community. And I think there's social and supportive network outside of that community. So I think it's really important to maybe try it out. If you can go to some events, some of the clubs, some of the social activities, get a feel for it before you actually sign on the dotted line, so to speak.
Okay, thank you.
I know this conversation could go for hours and hours and hours, and if we let me, we'd have it for hours and hours and hours. First and foremost, I want to thank our panelists for saying yes, for sharing their experiences and their stories, and being so honest and candid with us and offering great resources. And to all of you who decided to spend either your afternoon or evening, depending on where you are this evening, there are going to be 4 table talks every calendar year. The next one will be on February 24th, 2026. Registration is available on the Table Talks website on Navigating Solo. And so you are welcome to join that. These will remain free as an opportunity for people to engage with each other. I am always looking for panelists. So you've now seen an example of people really sharing their experiences. So if you are interested, there's also a form to fill out as well, saying you're interested in being a panelist. And finally, just because it's really important to get feedback to shape programming, there is a survey that will pop up for you as soon as you close out your Zoom. It'll be in a tab on your screen, whatever kind of screen you have. And if you would fill that out, that would be really helpful because it helps shape and craft programs going forward. So I greatly appreciate your time and most importantly, our panelists' time. And I hope to see you soon at something else neat. And if not, hopefully back in February in the new year. So thank you.